Hello, everyone. So, the G20 Summit in Brazil has been concluded and it has brought several significant developments to the front, and we'll be discussing that. So, from India's impactful presence to Canada's diplomatic isolation, the summit actually showcased shifting global alliances and priorities. So, today in this session, we will be getting into the highlights of the summit, and we will focus on India's role and the dynamics between global leaders and the major announcements like Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, etc. Okay, so let's try to understand what is G20. It's just not 20 nations. It's more than that. So when we talk about G20, it is often misunderstood as a group of 20 countries, right? It actually consists of 19 sovereign nations and one regional bloc, that is European Union. I hope all of you know about these things. Now, recently, if you look at it, African Union was added and broadening its representation. So that once African Union is added, that actually broadened the representation also. So this year's summit was hosted by Brazil, succeeding India's presidency in 2023. So last year it was in India. Now it has been concluded in Brazil. So the theme summit. Why I'm talking about this is because in case if you are getting some objective questions, the theme and all those things, then you should be in a position to remember. So the theme summit is building a just world and a sustainable planet. Now it actually highlight pressing the global issues like poverty, hunger, and sustainability. Now, let's look at India's strategic presence. So, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi played a prominent role during the summit as part of his three-nation tour, which include the Nigeria, Guyana. Modi's presence in Brazil was marked by impactful diplomacy. But the spotlight was not just on India's contributions. The media also highlighted his decision to avoid in getting engaged with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau despite the strained bilateral relations. So we discussed about India-Canada relation, the issues going on, and recently the Prime Minister's comment also. So we discussed about all this already. So I'm not getting into India-Canada relation at this point of time in detail, but still I can briefly mention about that. That's actually a noticeable, development during the summit. That was Justin Trudeau's isolation. So that's what I've mentioned in the introduction. If you remember, Canada's diplomatic isolation. So most of the leaders actually engaged in high-level discussions and photo opportunities, and all those discussions. Trudeau remained on the sidelines actually. So this reflect, if you see, Canada's deteriorating relations not just with India, but also with other major countries like China also. So such isolation actually raised concerns about Canada's diminishing influence in the global forums. Now, Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. See, for the first time in G20 history, a global alliance against hunger and poverty was launched that's led by Brazil's president Lula da Silva. Okay, so this initiative basically aimed to combat global hunger and inequality through collective action. See, the concept is ambitious and promising, but there are concerns about its implementation, participation, especially from the developed nations like USA, which may prioritize national interest over such kind of global initiatives, especially if you see Trump's policy, America First policy, and why unnecessarily the taxpayers' money need to spend for other global issues and concerns that he openly discussed and told about that during his election campaign. So that's one of the concern. Now, how to address this Israel-Hamas conflict is also one of the discussions. See, Brazil, if you see, used its platform to address the ongoing global crisis like Israel-Hamas. Okay, so statement emphasizing humanitarian aid for Gaza was actually adopted. But the key issues like hostage situations and the ongoing violence remained unexplored. Okay, so Brazil's leadership actually highlighted the need for a united global response to such kind of crisis, but the outcomes were less impactful than expected. Now, the call for UN Security Council and reforms. One of the summit's highlights was Brazil's strong push for UN Security Council reforms. So, President Lula openly questioned the current structure, and the current structure, if you see, that excludes significant regions like Africa, Latin America, and from the these countries are not there in the permanent representation. So, an inclusion is actually required from Africa and also from Latin America. So his passionate appeal basically emphasized the need for inclusivity and fairness and transparency, accountability when it comes to decision making. But with the potential return of Trump, or in fact, when Trump assumed the presidency in Jan 2025, to the such kind of reforms may face further delays and even stagnation, and it may not be possible also. So, see, when it comes to India's role, India continued its strong advocacy for reforms in global governance structures. So, at one point of time, or on one side, if you see, the summit highlighted India's growing influence. It also showcased the country's balanced approach towards international relations. India refrained from aggressive posturing, focusing instead of collaboration and economic growth. Now, what I can tell you in conclusion is, or what lies ahead for global governance. The summit, the G20 summit, actually underscored both potential and also limitations of global diplomacy. There are some initiatives like the Global Alliance Against Hunger, which are commendable, which are good, but their success depends on genuine collaboration and commitment, not only from the developing or underdeveloped countries, but developed countries also need to contribute for this. And that is again a big challenge. So, similarly, if you see the call for UN Security Council reforms, that's a step in the right direction. But again, achieving it will, you know, require overcoming entrenched power dynamics and a lot of, time and discussions. And I told you the reason also, US. Okay. So, India's role as a stabilizing force and a voice for the global south actually remain crucial in these forums. Very important role India have, and impactful role also India have. So, as we look forward for the next G20 summit, the question remains: will these ambitious goals will translate into actionable outcome, or will they just remain as aspirations on paper? So that only the time will tell. And anyway, what's your thought on these two that we have discussed? And you can comment below. That's about this session, guys, and thank you so much for watching. In case if you're looking for any course or mentorship program, I give you the link in the description. You can consider joining that. So see you guys.